Hello. I would like to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me to present in front of you today. The topic of my talk is the curious case of educating a conservator restorer. When I tell people that I'm a conservator by profession and that I work with wall paintings, I'm often met with the response, "Oh, so you basically repaint them." This reaction is probably justified to a certain extent because this is what is visible to the public. The state before, damaged and hard to read, and the state after, fixed and legible. The truth is, we don't always get to the point of using paint in our work. What remains hidden is the complexity of the process of assessment and analysis done individually for each single case, which leads to custom-made conservation plan and treatment. A conservation project requires months, if not years, to get to its final visible phase our work is most often associated with. However, as with many other professions, it is indeed the process that is crucial, the decisions that are made throughout, and the ability to foresee the consequences ahead of time, as these define the long-term success of the intervention. To be able to plan and carry out a regular conservation project, a conservator needs vast amount of knowledge in different areas of the natural and social sciences, the arts and humanities, as well as numerous practical skills, as well as skills in research and communication. This is where the challenge and the joy of educating a conservator begins. I would like to briefly introduce what are the current premises of holding the title of a conservator restorer. In Europe, there are two main organizations dealing with these matters. The first one, ECO, or the European Confederation of Conservator Restorers Organizations, represents the profession, and the second, the European Network for Conservation Restoration Education, or ANCOR, the academic programs educating conservator restorers. ECO, together with ICROM, the International Center for Conservation in Rome, and in close collaboration with ANCOR, developed a document defining the requirements to grant a person access to the profession of conservator restorer. According to it, the eligibility of someone to enter the profession is expressed as possessing the appropriate level of knowledge, skill, and competence necessary to accept responsibility for conservation restoration within a certain specialism or discipline and within the profession's ethical norms. Currently, the entry point, or the right for independent practice, is recognized as EQF level 7, or a master degree. I would, however, like to specifically focus on the word responsibility, as it provides an important aspect of the profession. The materials a conservator restorer works with are oftentimes of immense cultural, historical, emotional, and documental value, among others. Their existence and long-term preservation are of equally high importance to the nations they originate from, as they define these nations' identities. Therefore, any intervention done to them is scrutinized to the finest detail, as not to damage the integrity, the value, and the authenticity of the object. In this context, responsibility is not only the recognition of the professional's own impact on the long-term preservation of an object, but also the recognition of and the respect for all aspects defining the cultural heritage object as such. Such level of responsibility is only achieved through a holistic approach to the education of conservator restorers. This defines the backdrop against which I will try to present the challenges and the potential of conservation restoration education and its didactic approaches. Historically, conservation restoration started as a craft, with training provided by a master to an apprentice. Gradually, with the changed appreciation of the heritage items, it became apparent that a strong scientific knowledge on the materials and their deterioration is crucial for the field. Thus, some of the oldest conservation programs emerged. Currently, conservation restoration is taught both in academies and in universities, and despite some minor differences, mainly in terms of specializations, they educate students to bachelor and master levels, meeting the above-mentioned requirements. The reason for conservation programs to fit within the learning environments of both scientific and artistic educational institutions is their interdisciplinary approach and versatility. Conservation education offers a unique mixture of natural and social sciences, arts and humanities, and has a strong practical aspects. It is widely recognized that theory and practice in conservation are of equal importance. Theory covers mainly materials science, chemistry, biology, physics, relevant legislation, preventive care, technical art history, and so on. While the practice involves setting up scientific experiments, work with mock-ups, and most importantly, working with real heritage objects from museums, galleries, or private collections. Probably the biggest challenge a student meets is to learn how to transfer the knowledge from the theoretical classes to the case studies they would work with, and then to set this experience within a larger context by applying it to different projects in the early stages of their professional career. The shift to a bachelor and master level studies through the Bologna process required a change in the program structure on one hand, and in the teaching approaches on the other. In this aspect, the ECO document offered immense help by defining the requirements for the knowledge, skills, and competences at the end of each EQF level. This, however, does not help much with the ever-growing demands posed by our own field. As many other disciplines, conservation evolves exceptionally fast. The developments in science and technology allow for better, faster, and increasingly less destructive ways to study and document objects. New materials with better properties are discovered and tested for their suitability for the preservation of cultural heritage objects. Methodologies are either refined or completely substituted by new ones. At the same time, we still have 3 academic years to educate our bachelor students from the scratch to a level that will give them a chance to be employed and be good professionals. This requires us to be more efficient in our teaching methods so that we can not only introduce the vital core knowledge, skills, and competences and embed them successfully, but we also need to introduce the latest research, methods, and technologies to provide our students with current knowledge and insight of the best practices. The process of learning, on the other hand, is greatly dependent on our students. While it is the educator's responsibility to estimate the best didactic approach to address the varying learning needs of the student's own background, interests, and motivation play an equally important role in the process. In Denmark, for example, the students have a diverse background that is rather evenly distributed. There are those who are fresh after high school, and those who already have some experience as students in other programs, art history, art, chemistry, physics, or archaeology being the most often backgrounds. Naturally, some of the students will lean more towards the academic, others will be more practice-oriented. Some will have affinity towards natural sciences, others towards humanities. This presents an interesting challenge to the teaching team, particularly when it is expected that after their bachelor exam, all students will have achieved specifically defined level of competence. When asked how do we learn, 3 groups of educators participating in the ICROM's International Summer School on Communication and Teaching Skills in Conservation and Science agreed that there definitely are more ways to learn that we are currently addressing in our teaching practice. There are a number of publications on the transfer of knowledge in conservation and restoration education. The majority of the authors agree that experiential learning and embodied knowledge are of vital importance for the process. Usually, the theoretical instruction is followed by practice. Some of more abstract concepts, however, such as the ethics, are discussed throughout the different courses on the example of specific cases the students are working with. These processes take time and need space for reflection, something that educators are well aware of. The students, however, get easily frustrated over those issues if they don't succeed at the first attempt. Some simple techniques could help them understand the value of patience and the value of failure in the process of learning. Short and repetitive activities, which lead to better results over decreasing time required to do them, can quickly demonstrate the students the importance of these 2 concepts. One such activity is making a traditional origami crane. It needs not more than 5 repetitions to learn how to do without guidelines, and with a little bit more practice to get perfect results, even when the level of challenge increases by diminishing the size on the paper. When abstract concepts are addressed, selected quick-paced activities prove to be more efficient in getting the students on board rather than lengthy explanations. For example, in an introductory course on documentation, questions such as how detailed a description should be, how detailed the process description should be, can these descriptions be codified through drawn instructions instead, and how detailed these drawn instructions need to be were asked. These questions don't have a predefined clear answer, but responding that they are case-dependent or institution-dependent, although correct, is not providing the students with the answer they are looking for. At this point, the students have not worked with case studies yet, and have not begun to learn how to observe and what to observe in an object. Therefore, a short demonstration prompting them to recognize an object from a pair of which only one of the object is described by a peer very quickly demonstrates the level of detail one might want to consider in a conservation report. It also shows the necessity of learning how to look at an object in order to understand its structure, to recognize decay patterns, or recognize original and added materials. Such activities can be easily modified and fitted in other classes on demand to brush up basic concepts, as they usually take up not more than 10 or 15 minutes. When it comes to the fact that nowadays the students need to learn more in less time, one can consider supporting the learning process by providing self-reflection tools in the form of reference files, personal manuals, comparative diaries, and self-evaluation checklists. If kept on a regular basis, these would support the student's ability to learn from mistakes and to reflect on experience from previous courses. It will also give the students a clear indication of their own progress. However, these also need to be gradually introduced so that the complexity of the required outcome responds to the level of competence of the student. For example, a manual for a process where materials and methods are shortly described with their benefits and shortcomings is a fitting introductory tool for a bachelor student. These manuals are gradually added to as the student gains more knowledge and experience in the subject. By the end of the bachelor level studies, the student should be able to make a motivated proposal for a fitting method or material based on a specific and not very complex case study, relying on their knowledge and, if necessary, by referring to the methods described in the manual. As a build-up, at master level, the students are required to create a comparative file on their own, where they independently will evaluate the methods and the materials they are presented with. They will work with case studies with more complex challenges, where issues such as aesthetics and professional ethics of intervention play a substantial role. These case studies will also require the students to be independent in their decision-making process and to indeed accept the responsibility for their intervention, a prerequisite for their access to the profession upon graduation. The work on these tools is still in progress, but the preliminary response by students is encouraging. These materials were developed for courses in ceramics and glass, but they can easily be adapted for other courses. Further work is needed to refine the existing tools, as well as to create cross-disciplinary tools that would hopefully facilitate a better transfer of knowledge across the studies. However, designing new teaching materials, trying them out, and improving them takes time. It requires collaboration between educators and students based on good communication, open-mindedness, and mutual trust. Honest and objective feedback is crucial for both sides. To finish, I would like to thank the participants and the teaching team of the 2019 ICROM International Summer School, and in particular Crystal Devis and Daniela Korolje-Tsarkanyakov for the inspiration, enthusiasm, and the fruitful decisions. Thank you.